Welcome to the Clarington Chronicle podcast. I'm your host, Mark Stanish. This is podcast episode number 90-87 for Thursday, May 10th, 2018. Glad to have you join me. Okay, well, welcome to the podcast for this evening, and first I have a little bit of housekeeping to do. As you'll notice, the title for this one is episode 90-87, and why I'm doing that is because I was going through some of the old episodes, and I noticed that 87 was missing. So I'm going to continue, just so that it appears properly in the podcast order if you're downloading these, that it'll go 87, 88, 89, 90. It'll kind of go in order, so that 90 will be 90-87, and then we'll have 90- 90, right? So that will be the actual one, and then we'll go to 91. Okay, so this is basically a special edition on the Durham All Candidates debate, which occurred on May 8th in Courtice, and there was very little notice of this. I just happened to notice this on my lunch break. There was a post in the South Courtice forum on Facebook, and outlining that there would be a meeting, an all-candidates meeting at Hope Fellowship Church on the south side on Bloor there, just down the road from me here. So I was very excited about that, and having been in these things before, I know that there's very little advance notice. So some people were complaining afterwards that they hadn't heard of it, and there wasn't enough notice and all this, but it was organized by the Friends of the Farewell, primarily, I believe, by Libby Rakansky. And it's just a matter of, if you've ever been involved in local organizations, like when I was president of the Courtice Area Ratepayers Association, which was active back around 2002 up to about 2005 or so. It was very difficult to get people to get information out there and to get people to be aware of what was going on. So we didn't even have Facebook back then, so it was incredibly difficult. So in any case, there was a debate, and I did manage to attend, so I'm bringing you a little bit of information from what I saw, and hopefully giving you a little bit of insight as to what happened. So it was at 7 p.m. It began at about 7 p.m. on May 8th, which was this past Tuesday. And at the beginning, now I have no way to verify a lot of this, and these are my notes. Take it for what you will. I would advise you to visit the websites. I'm gonna explain those websites and everything to you, and where you can get more information later in the podcast. But basically, they had only two candidates had appeared. We were told by Professor Susanna Elston, who was moderating, we were told that Lindsey Park, who is the Conservative nominee, declined to appear. And I believe I did check on Facebook later, and I saw that she posted something around 10:30 p.m. that day from the Conservative leadership kickoff party. So I think that's where she went. She decided to not see the residents of Courtice in a debate, but rather to attend that. So I was disappointed to see that. And we were also told that the Green Party had not selected a candidate, but I have found some information about that. They do, in fact, have a candidate. And that candidate would be Michelle Corbett, the Green Party. And I'll include links here so you can look up more information about all these. And there is also a Libertarian candidate, Ryan Robinson. So I looked up those candidates. So those are our candidates. We have, for the Liberals, Granville Anderson. For the NDP, we have Joel Usher. For the Progressive Conservative Party, we have Lindsey Park. For the Green Party, we have Michelle Corbett. And for the Libertarian Party, we have Ryan Robinson. But in attendance at this debate were Liberal MP Granville Anderson and NDP's Joel Usher. So I'll go through some of my notes here. And again, like I said, I took notes as best I could. This is my understanding of it. If something seems unclear to you, please visit the candidates' websites. I would encourage you in any case to visit the candidates' websites and read up on it. So as they kicked off, there was a number of questions. It was a sort of standard debate format where they went back and forth. There was a little bit of rebuttal, and there were probably about 4 or 5 major topics. One seemed to be broken up into 8 or something near the end, but there were about 4 or 5 major topics, and I'll just go through them and share some of my comments, some of my notes here that I wrote. So the first one was on the Hydro One debt. So this is a huge issue for people anywhere in Ontario. The hydro rates that were soaring over the past few years and the efforts made to mitigate that. So that was a huge issue. Granville said that they had to upgrade them. He pointed out that there are no more smog days and that Ontario has competitive rates. And to pay for the debt and this, the rates had to rise. And that it was interesting that he noted that the cost is, it's debt, because a lot of people say, my great grandparents, great grandkids are going to have to pay for this. But he noted that, they had to spread the cost over generations, because really it's a massive cost, and it wouldn't be fair for just this current generation to pay for it, that other generations who will benefit from lowering the debt and the transmission lines and all that had a bit of a duty to bear some of those costs as well. So that was kind of interesting. Joel didn't want to blame the OPG for the debt. His plan is to buy back Hydro 1 and end the time of use. Their number one priority is to serve the public. And Granville noted that tearing up contracts, which I think he was referring to the Conservatives there, that were not present, but just the general platform, the tearing up the contract of the CEO makes a good soundbite, but not practical. Another topic that came up was taxes. Joel said that they want sort of the idea that everyone has to pay their fair share. He mentioned the term fair share quite often, and Granville said his way of investing in the economy, they wanted to grow the economy by investing in the community. And he said that we had to be mindful of raising taxes and not driving away business, that we have hospitals, daycare, so those investments draw people in, they better the lives of the community, and that people want to come here because of those investments. He pointed to low unemployment relatively in Ontario, plus high growth, and summarized by saying they've achieved too much to go back now. And Joel took issue with the P3 model and said that people are not paying their fair share, mainly corporations. The Greenbelt was the next topic, and they discussed, Granville said that the Liberals say that, he felt there was no need to develop the Greenbelt for the next 100 years. I believe the Conservative platform has development of the Greenbelt, but possibly compensating areas, so sort of shifting the Greenbelt. Joel wanted to emphasize building along transit lines, and Granville said there was common ground between the NDP and the Liberal on preserving the Greenbelt. I also will note that Granville really stressed his local roots and what he's done in the community, and he says he's been here for about 30 years. Joel, on the other hand, mentioned that he was, I believe, he said he was born in Oshawa but grew up in Courtice. But they both demonstrated their local roots. But Granville really hammered it home that he's done a lot in the community for the past 30 years. The incinerator came up. It's not strictly a provincial issue. The province had the final say, but really this was a local issue. Joel talked about changing first past the post, so he sort of shifted it into representation, that perhaps we didn't have the proper representation. And Granville said, he wanted to ensure proper safe monitoring. He mentioned perhaps 4 times a year. NDP don't believe in privatization, Joel was saying, and they want to keep the profit motivation out of it. He joked about water bottles, for example, and Granville actually had a plastic water bottle that he was sipping from, so I thought that was kind of funny, and everybody, I think, got a little bit of a chuckle out of it. There was also a bit about wells in the area on the 407 and how it's impacted wells, the 418. Nobody really mentioned the heritage buildings that were lost at that point, and I probably should have mentioned it. I did speak. I did have a question on education, but yeah, we did lose a lot of properties there. But the discussion really was about the well water, so because it was Friends of the Farewell, I didn't really want to overly push that issue, and I wanted to keep it sort of on the themes that they had outlined. The GO train's coming, that came up. Granville mentioned it's fully funded. He's saying by 2023, he said. And Joel said there's no plans for the NDP to stop the expansion. Just they want more buses, 50% funding on municipal transit projects. And Granville also mentioned, and this is important to note, that the trains will be coming every 15 minutes and electrified. So I don't know if it's just at rush hour 15 minutes, but that was good to hear. So overall, Joel Mount wanted to mention a code of conduct at the end as well, which I thought was noteworthy. So overall, I'm going to commit because I know a lot of the times you have these sorts of debates and everybody's waffling, but I will commit and say that Granville Anderson, the Liberal, won the debate. And the reason I say that is because I believe you have to show up at the debate to have a chance at winning. And Lindsey Park did not show up, and I have not seen, I checked her Twitter feed as well, I have not seen a reasonable answer why she was not there. So she did not present herself to the residents here, to myself, for the debate, and so I don't know her skill at debating, and she may be fine, but she was not given us the opportunity to look at that. So same for the Green Party. They may or may not have had a person at that point, but in my mind, you kind of have to have somebody ready to go. We're less than a month away from the election. If you don't have somebody ready to go, I feel that you perhaps are not prepared for this election. And the same with the Libertarian Party. They may have or may not have had their candidate selected, but I feel a public debate is a forum. 1 month out from the election, we're only 4 weeks away. We're going to start getting pamphlets. There was no pamphlets by any parties except for the Liberals and the NDP, and that was, I think, another blow against the Conservatives, Greens, and Libertarians. They should have at least had some sort of presence there. So, although I believe in getting the message out, but in these kind of occasions where you're called to the community, I have debated myself. I have run for local election several times, and I make it a point. If necessary, you have to take the day off work. If necessary, you have to change plans with your family, and it is a big sacrifice. And I was disappointed to see that we didn't have the full slate of candidates. I did like Joel's presentation. He's very well spoken, and he does have a good grasp, I would say, of the topics. Bordering on strong, and I do believe he has a good grasp of the facts. Nobody was challenging his. He wasn't called out, anyways, for not having the facts. So I believe he's a strong NDP candidate for the area. But I just feel that Granville had a stronger grasp of the local issues, a stronger grasp of a stronger demonstration of the sense of community that we have here and who we want to represent us. For like somebody who really has dug in. Now that might not translate across the whole riding, right? But in terms of Courtice, I think that this was sort of Granville's stomping grounds. I think he hit the points he needed to hit. I think he adopted a conciliatory and cooperative tone, which I found very interesting. And overall, I think that he was elected 4 years ago to do a job, namely the 407, namely the expansion at Darlington, refurbishment, sorry. And also the bringing of the GO train here. All three of those were met, so I do believe that he's in a strong position to win this election, and I do think he won that debate based on his command of the performance and how to debate. And I also believe that he presented what we want to see as a community, what we want representing us, and he got the job done. So that speaks volumes there. So when when he makes a promise, he kept it. There was talk of hospitals. It's not there was a talk of hospitals, and there wasn't too much back and forth. Well, in a sense there was, because Joel did take issue with the P3 part of it, but I think they're both kind of on the same page on the necessity of hospitals in the community. Granville emphasized $200 million plus that's going into the Bowmanville, the Lake Ridge Hospital. So I think overall that's sort of something that we all want to see as well. So overall, though, I have to give the win here of the 5 candidates so far that we'll be selecting from, and perhaps more. I will bring you for future podcasts. If anybody else enters, I will mention that as well. I'll attempt, I guess, to get some of these people on the podcast, perhaps. I don't know if they have time, because they really are busy. They're going door to door as much as possible, trying to meet as many people as possible. But overall, of these 5, I think that at this debate, Granville Anderson was the clear winner, and certainly displayed some impressive skills at debating. Question of the podcast: who do you think won the 2018 Durham riding all candidates debate in Courtice? Who do you think won the 2018 Durham riding all candidates debate held in Courtice? And that's it for episode number 90-87 of the Clarington Chronicle podcast. If you'd like to comment on the podcast or have an idea for an upcoming episode, please email me at claringtonchronicle@gmail.com. And you can find this podcast on Twitter at ClaringtonCron or on one of the Facebook pages dedicated to Clarington or communities within Clarington, or on my website, markstanish.com. You can subscribe for free on iTunes or Android and get instant updates when a new podcast is uploaded. Thank you for listening.